everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Leadership 101, hosted by HRDQ-U and presented by Tom Bucks. My name is Sarah, and I will moderate today's webinar. The webinar will be about an hour, and if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them into that questions box. We'll be answering these questions as they come in live at the end of the presentation or an email if we do run out of time. Tom currently serves as Director of Workforce Training at Lehigh Carbon Community College. His primary focus is on positive workplace development, including leadership management, communication, and interpersonal skills. His clients include the U.S. Postal Service, Dicon Lutheran Services, Pennsylvania State Employee Retirement System, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Johnson & Johnson, American Heart Association, and Fisher Clinical Service. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. So thank you for joining us on Leadership 101. We're going to go over the agenda. I always like to introduce some learning agenda items so you know what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about today about identifying key characteristics of leaders. And we're going to talk about building trust and confidence with your employees. We're going to talk about avoiding behaviors that undermine leadership and how to promote teamwork and esprit de corps. Act decisively and how to demonstrate leadership in a crisis. So what is leadership and why is it important? Well, leadership is positively influencing others to accomplish a specific goal. I always think about this, the picture you see sometimes floating around the internet where it shows the difference between a leader and a manager. A manager sits in his chariot pointing the way and his or her staff pulls them along, whereas a leader is in the trenches, working with people, demonstrating how to do it, and exemplifying positive behavior. Here's a nice quote by John Quincy Adams, our 6th president. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So we're going to have a little poll here. Do you consider yourself a leader? So take a few seconds to answer that. Okay, so far we have about 93% of polling, people say they are a leader, and only about 7% say they're not. So that's a good number, and maybe after the end of today, many of you who have answered that you don't consider yourselves leaders will now consider yourselves a leader once you see what you're actually doing. So let's chat in a little bit. In the chat, I guess that's the questions box, please type in, describe your favorite teacher, something they've done to influence you. So take a second and do that. Okay, we have a lot of responses coming in. I was just writing a few of them down. Believed in me, genuine, inspiring, approachable, believed in me, understanding, engaging, supportive, approachable. These are all characteristics of your teachers and can also be considered characteristics of a good leader. So how do leaders add to the work world? They have and share a vision, they pursue excellence, they communicate effectively, they're trustworthy, they build confidence in their employees, they're enthusiastic, and they serve others. One of the things I always think of as this is we should always, as leaders, be working to borrow a phrase from from Covey, is to continually work to sharpen the saw. We should always be working to build these. And if you look back on what many of you responded with when we asked about your favorite teachers, many of those traits are exemplified in leaders. So let's talk a little bit about some of these. First of all, leaders should have and share a vision. Vision is the ability to imagine the organization's future and inspire others to work toward achieving that goal. And basically, when you have a vision, you should be able to state it simply, make it memorable and portable. And the vision should really discuss the what, not the how. Think of some great visions that you've heard of companies that are very memorable and stick with you. You can think of them as, we bring good things to life. That's GE's. And if you want to look at something we probably are experiencing now, many of you could probably remember President Obama's campaign slogan from 2008, change you can believe in, because it was short, it was simply said, it was memorable and portable, and it was about the what now. Just like conversely, we see today's candidates using that same strategy of make America great again. Again, the what, not the how. The reason you know it is because it's simply said, it's memorable and portable, and again, it deals with the what, not the how. Other examples are Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. Cirque du Soleil, invoke the imagination, provoke the senses, and evoke the emotions of people around the world. Or a local grocery store. We help families live happier and healthier lives by providing the freshest, tastiest, and most nutritious local produce from local farms to your table in under 24 hours. We want to be able to translate that vision into everyday activities. Again, think of a vision as your preferred future. We should discuss, where should we be? When should we be there? Where will we concentrate our efforts, and how will we allocate our resources? Another way to think of it is, if you have a solution, what is the problem? And state it that way, and state how you are the solution to the problem. Next, a leader should work and strive to pursue excellence. Effective teachers pursue excellence both in themselves and in their students. They set high expectations, communicate them clearly, and offer a lot of feedback to students, especially noticing when they're doing well. And I think we mentioned that before when we were getting feedback from our from the group here about what their best teachers were. And again, think for a moment. I'll let you just think for about 5 to 10 seconds here of effective teachers you've had, and any teachers you could think of that did this, that set high expectations, that communicated what they wanted you to do, and offered feedback, and then gave you rewards for doing well. Think about that for a moment. So looking at pursuing excellence, first of all, we want to do it right the first time. A lot of time and money is wasted correcting mistakes. Always look for opportunities for improvement and seek new ways of doing things. Be open to suggestions and be willing to take risks and solicit feedback. So pursuing excellence is something we should always do. Try to do it right the first time, and always look for opportunities for improvement. Whenever you institute some sort of change initiative or some sort of program to move along, when you reach that, don't sit and say, this is where we are, we did it, we're good forever now. It's hardly that way at all. There's a lot of examples of times when you improve, you put out something new, and you change again. Apple didn't stop at the iPhone 4. They kept going and improving and seeking new ways of doing things. Another thing that leaders do is set expectations. Employees and your staff really respond to a challenge of reaching targets. People are motivated by challenge when they believe they can succeed. They remain motivated when they see the results of their efforts. And make your targets clear, specific, and understood by all. Targets must be directly related to employees' daily tasks and activities. In short, people need to have a goal. When they come in, people respond best when they come to their desk and they know they're a part of something bigger. People are motivated by these challenges. This is something that's going to be tough, you could tell your employees. This is going to be a lot of hard work. But when they see the results along the way, taking time along the way to enjoy successes and maybe discuss defeats or setbacks. And your target should be clear. Nobody likes ambiguous goals. A lot of times one thing we fail to do as managers and HR professionals is to set goals of pursue excellence, have happy customers, or whatever you decide to do. But those are vague. It's good to have quantifiable measurements. One of the things that I do with my staff here is when we do our annual reviews, we talk a lot about the college-specific benchmarks, but we have things that are kind of specific to our department. So it's okay to add to what we do as far as measurements, and I like to give them goals saying, do this. If you, for instance, one of the goals would be 12 hours of professional development over the next year. You set that as a clear goal, it's specific and measurable, and you say if you meet this goal, you succeed. If you exceed expectations, and if you get less, then you fail to meet expectations. Other things that you need to discuss with your staff is how long does it take to make a product or service come out? The cost. How much does it take to make that product or provide the service? How are customers, how are the end users of our product, what would be their experience with it? What will we experience when we're giving that service? And what's the bottom line benefit by meeting this target? All in all, everything you do when you communicate goals to your staff should be set around quantifiable, easily measured expectations that aren't vague and are unambiguous. We want to talk about communicating effectively. And one of the things is show passion. Voice ideas in a clear, logical, convincing manner. And use plain language. Make it memorable by sharing a story, personal anecdote, or analogy. Make others the hero. You don't always have to get the rewards. Defer that to your staff. Take a risk and share a personal story. Focus on something you've learned and end with a call to action. Check for understanding and use all available channels. Presentations, meetings, email, company intranet, stories, anything you could think of that gives you an opportunity to connect with your people. Regarding passion is think back for a moment to all the great leaders that you've seen. They may not have been leaders you've agreed with, people who were leaders and were followed by people. They had a passion. They had a passion for what they believed in. Steve Jobs had a passion for consumer electronics, and it showed. He used pretty plain language. When he unveiled the iPod, he said, "This is what it is, and this is what it's going to be." Make it memorable by sharing a story. People remember stories. Odds are when you walk away from this webinar, you may not remember every bullet point or everything, but if I tell a story here, that'll be something that perhaps you'll share with your people, with your staff, with your subordinates, with other leaders in your organization to get your point across. And they're a very powerful medium to get your point across and to illustrate your goals and your organization's vision. And you also want to be trustworthy. And being trustworthy shows that you have consistency, competence, and compassion. Consistency meaning that if you treat one person one way in regards to a certain situation, you're going to treat other people the same way. And you want to illustrate that you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about by having an understanding of the subject. And if you don't understand the subject, it's a good idea to work to get to understand that. Get to understand what you don't know. Because many times, people that you work with, if you're a leader in an organization, there are people who work for you that may be more knowledgeable in some areas than you are. So it's good to understand what they understand as much as possible. So talk to them, talk to people who do the same job so that you give an aura of competence and understanding. And give compassion. People come into work every day. They leave their families, they leave their loved ones, their warm beds, and drive into work on a Monday or a rainy day like today, and oftentimes, they're humans. Not everybody's going to give 100% of their time all the time. We have things we worry about at home, other work things. So it'll show that you have a heart and show that you understand that there's a human side to the people. We're not all simply cogs in a machine that go round and round, but we do have wants and desires, and sometimes a little compassion goes a long way to helping people get through those difficult times. Some ways you can build trust is keep your promises. Communicate directly and openly. Be honest about problems. Don't circulate rumors. Praise more than you criticize, at least 3 times more, and practice what you preach. So when you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to help someone with a problem they have, if you promise you're going to have an open door policy, have that policy. One of the things that I've seen a lot is many times people in leadership positions, pardon me, will say, I have an open door, you can come to me anytime. But when you walk up to their office, it's always locked. Or you find that though their door may be open, their minds and their hearts are not. So keep your promises. If you promise that you're going to be there for somebody or do something, keep that promise. Communicate directly and openly. Give specifics. Don't be vague. Oftentimes, also talking about circulating rumors is any workplace has rumors. Just the other day we were, talking about the rumors of what's going to, summer hours and closures of buildings and all sorts of things. And these are, rumors that get started, and good leaders effectively shut that down and do a good job of doing that. And, I commend the leaders that we have here that do a good job at that. Praise more than you criticize. Unfortunately, if you look at the data, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but on average, most of the time, most communication that people have with their leaders, with their managers, are negative, are corrective conversations. You did this wrong, or you could do this better. But people need that praise too. So you should try to give, even for the little things. I have people who work for me, and even in doing their jobs that they're here to do every day and they get paid to do, they should be thanked for that. It's something that they do, and it makes my job easier. So praise more than you criticize, and practice what you preach. Again, I try to preach this, and I try to practice it. Being a human, we don't always succeed, but try your hardest to exemplify how you want your organization to look. A positive organization begins with you, and you could start that, and you could help create that by doing it yourself. So we're going to use this little chat-in time again, and I want you to think for a second on this question, and then chat in again as you have all day. You have to implement an action or policy that you know is going to be unpopular, such as cutting the budget or reducing staff size. How might you do it in a way to minimize erosion or withdrawal of trust? So take a moment and answer that question. Okay, so we have some starting to come in. Some of the things people say is that, I'm going to write these down so I don't have to look back and forth. So basically, people are saying things such as be approachable, be clear. People have said that. Allowed your staff to speak their minds, even if it's something you don't want to hear. So open to criticism, I would say. That's what someone just said, that, open to criticism. Reassure people. Some of us have said be understanding of fears and allowing people time to change. That's a good one, because change, especially if you're talking about a policy like this, cutting the budget, reducing staff size, is change. And change in many instances is very much like people who go through change go through the same phases you would as grieving. There's the bargaining, there's the disbelief, there's the anger. So with any change, again, some people are going to come around to that quicker, but regardless, you have to allow people time to adapt to that change. So if you're thinking of implementing a new policy, a new procedure, and it's coming up time to implement it, try to give people time to adjust to it before the policy takes effect. So very good. So a lot of those, approachable, be empathetic, be clear, open to criticism, reassure, show that they're in the same, that the leaders are in the same position as them, that they're not above these changes. That's a good one. People don't want to know that this change is affecting me, but leadership doesn't have to follow it. So be sure to be able to be willing to go along and live those policies that you're asking your staff to. Very good. Thank you very much for that feedback. And it kind of mirrors a lot what many of you have said during your chat and regarding your favorite teachers. So another thing that's really important is that a leader helps build confidence with their people. So first of all, pay attention. Provide lots of opportunities for employees to succeed. Include a variety of challenges, not a single focus. Build on success. Celebrate victories, no matter how small. Make it safe to fail, and don't compare employees. These are all important things. So first of all, pay attention. You want to provide a lot of opportunities for employees to succeed. There's a lot of instances of people working outside their comfort level and growing. So what you want to do is understand that many of your staff, even yourself included, we're not all exempt from this, is we succeed and we grow as individuals, both personally and professionally, when we're able to try new things out. It could be maybe bringing an outside interest that's applicable to your job, or maybe trying something new you've never tried before. So you give opportunities for them to succeed. But on the flip side of that, make it safe to fail. If you give someone opportunities to try something new and they don't succeed, don't make it as a punishment. Make it as a learning opportunity. Again, use encouraging words, getting back to making interactions with staff positive. As I mentioned before, you want to build on that success. Your people you work with, your boss, your team, your direct reports, we all have a lot to bring to the table, and people are engaged and successful when they feel they can bring their best skills to the workforce. So allow them to bring their skills and allow people to choose a challenge. Here we've worked in some instances where I've said to some of my staff, what are some things that you're interested in? Like, what really is your passion? And if your passion can intercede with what you do, that's going to make coming to work a lot much better. You're going to have happier employees. You're going to be a better manager because of that. And you should allow that. Allow people to bring their passions to the workplace, and they'll succeed. I like this one. Celebrate victories, no matter how small. I like to say, celebrate success systematically. What is rewarded is repeated. So if you have an end goal in mind and there's certain steps along the way, little mini projects that kind of build up the entire project, as you do each one, stop for a minute and appreciate your success. Debrief, learn a little bit, and give rewards. Whatever works best in your organization. It could be a simple thank you. It could be a card. It could be a gift certificate for an ice cream. It could be an extra break time. Whatever you think works best, but do it in a way that is systematic and fair, and repeat it. Because again, what's rewarded is repeated. Be enthusiastic. I can't stress this enough. How can you be more enthusiastic? So write a few of these answers in. Tell me, how do you think you could be more enthusiastic? So I'll wait for you to put a few of them in there. Okay, we have a couple coming in. Yeah, a lot of people are saying things such as smiling more, be interested in people's work, be available to people, ask questions, smile, show a passion. One of the things a story I heard, and here's one of my stories I mentioned, is there was a company that I was working with that made routers. And this is a story here. The company that someone worked with made routers, and they made routers for computer applications. They put them in dorm rooms. But when they got a contract for a big healthcare provider, it was a research firm researching cancer cures, I believe it was, and they got a big order for these routers. And the management said to their staff, "We're not just making routers that just convey. It's not just internet going through these lines. What we're making is devices that allow information that's saving people's lives." People know that they're making something that, in the end, even though they're not doing the research and they're not doctors, they're allowing people to do great things by producing these routers. So that's a good way to show your enthusiasm and to get people enthusiastic for what they do. So other things we can do is, again, be a pleasant person. People don't want to follow a sourpuss who's not engaged. If you're passionate and optimistic, people will follow you. Deliver more. Again, employees are more likely to go the extra step when they're working for someone who is enthusiastic. Be happy to be there, and people will be happy to be there as well. You create energy. Your enthusiasm is going to create an internal energy that will allow you to accomplish your mission, spill over your followers. How many people out there, you don't have to answer this, just think for yourselves, have worked or work with someone who is just a naturally bubbly person, who's smiling and always energetic? If you follow sports, you see Bryce Harper with his Make Baseball Fun Again, and that people are doing that now because it's an energy that creates energy, and people get attached to it, and that becomes a natural leader right there. So Bryce Harper is a natural leader on his team because of his love of the game, his passion, his knowledge, and he exemplifies it every day, and people follow him. And that gets back to what I said, people are contagious. You're contagious. Successful leaders are people who exemplify passion. When you build a reputation, how many, again, I just mentioned Bryce Harper. He's known now, he has a reputation of being a natural leader. So now that's what he's thought of. He's the guy that gets upset when things aren't, and gets kicked out of games, and he's the leader that makes people want to flock to them. That's his reputation. And serve others. People here, I don't know if you've heard of servant leadership, but here's some things we should safely assume about servant leadership. One of which is to be a servant leader means you have a responsibility for your employees. They depend on you for guidance, and they depend on leaders in the organization for to help meet some of their needs and improve. You could do best by your staff and by people in your organization by leading, by serving them. What can you do as a leader to fulfill their needs? Are you willing to make sacrifices for your employees' needs? And how might that look? So think about that. And here are some behaviors that signal you're serving others. Listen. We all know how, but do we really listen? Listening builds trust, builds relationships, and helps you gain perspective. How well did you listen today, and how can you improve on that? I always say you can always tell when someone's they're hearing you, but they're not listening. Either they're on their phone or they're still typing. Some things you could do as a leader is when someone is asking for your perspective and wanting to talk to you, try to stop what you're doing as much as you can. Give them your undivided attention. And show that you're interested by doing things such as making eye contact and doing those appreciative little cues, those, oh yeah, that's great, those head bobs and those little things that people see you do that make them realize that you're listening to them. Ask people what they're thinking and feeling. One of my passions is organizational storytelling, and that's the idea that a lot can be found out by just talking with people in your organization, getting their ideas, and hearing what they have to say. As I mentioned before, in many cases, many of your direct reports and many people under you are sometimes more knowledgeable in areas of the organization than you are. if there's a lot of computer systems here, and there's a lot of programs. I can't know everything. And there are people who I work with, and some of whom report to me that are much more knowledgeable on it. I want to listen to what they have to say, ideas for improvement, things to make it better, responses of our customers. Those are the people that we can engage with to be able to have a better understanding and be able to guide the organization better. Again, share meaningful conversations. Take a minute to understand people as they are. If you have access to things such as disc profiles or Myers-Briggs, and get to be able to understand how they appreciate information, what they want in their work, you can approach them better. But regardless, people like to be known individually, and they want you to know them as a person because, again, as I mentioned before, knowing what passions they have, what interests they have can help the organization as a whole, because their passions can be applied to things they're already doing and perhaps other tasks that might help them grow. And as they grow, your organization is going to grow as well. So some behaviors that undermine leadership, one of which is lack of transparency. No one likes working in an organization that has a hidden agenda. There's things they're working at, they don't really know why they're doing that. Inconsistency is a major flaw in many organizations because they see results being rewarded one way for one group and rewarded for another way in another group, and your goal is to try to make everything as consistent as possible. Don't be unpredictable. That is, if you have policies and procedures, don't go changing them willy-nilly. Don't go doing different things all the time. Try to be as predictable as possible because, again, getting back to change, people are not comfortable with change. The inconsistency and the unpredictability, again, will cause people to experience that change, which, as I mentioned before, is very similar in how we respond to it than grief. And they have double standards. I've worked in jobs before, and I've seen this before, where there are the boss's favorites that sometimes get rewarded in certain ways or dealt with in certain ways. Apply policies and procedures as best you can to everybody. Again, just because you're talking doesn't mean you're communicating. We should have effective communication that really means you're taking it in and you're listening. People want to have their stories told and have their stories listened to. As I mentioned before, if someone comes in your office, your workstation, and wants to talk to you about something, try to stop what you're doing, put your pen down, and turn and face them. Give them that cue that you are giving them the floor, that you are giving them the ability. One of my mentors told a story how when she was a VP of a major organization, she would go around and she would go to their cubicle and say, "How is this implementation running? What are you experiencing?" And then she would slowly start taking a sip of her water bottle. Basically, that was her little cue to the other person to illustrate that I'm listening to you. And getting back to talking, when you're talking, make sure you're talking to someone who can help you with your goals, that can do something to affect change. So how to communicate more effectively? Some things you can do is, change their plan in your organization and other areas of your organization. Keep staff, keep people you work with up to date on that. No one likes to be surprised on changes, so any financial performance, productivity, or service levels that you're doing, make sure it's communicated as a continual basis as you can. This happens a lot with employee feedback, employee evaluations, because we see feedback and employee evaluations are done annually, and then it's put away in a drawer and it's not visited again. We should be visiting these things very often. As I mentioned before, with the staff that I manage here, we have our regular annual reviews, but we also do a developmental action plan, like what can we do to make yourself better? And you give them, again, those goals that are measurable and quantifiable, and we revisit them monthly or at least quarterly so that you're able to continually be updated. No one likes to be surprised. 2 months before the quarter ends that the numbers are down or that they didn't do a job correctly. So those sorts of discussions should never come as surprises. Other things to consider about are how's it going with your clients, with your customers? Do you have any great new ones, success stories? What are some stories that aren't that great that we can learn from? Who's new in the market? What are some new products that are out there? What are some competitors doing? Again, that helps people understand where they fit in with the organization, where they fit in with what we're doing as a whole in our fields. And then always ask for feedback. I like to always say, how's that? Is that good information? Was this helpful? A lot of times we go in to conversations and we give information, and then leave, but was the information helpful? So I always like to follow up with that question. Was this helpful? Was this making it easier for you or harder? Is it causing strife or is it making you feel more comfortable? So always try to communicate more effectively, clearer, but then again, ask and make sure it's understood. So another thing is neglect. So think for a second. Would your employees say any of the following? Well, I only hear from my boss when there's a problem. My boss spends all their time pleasing upper management. I never hear information first from my boss. My boss has no idea what I'm interested or capable of. So those are some things, if you hear that, you know that perhaps there's an issue. Or if you said these things, you know that there's an issue of neglect going on in your organization. Again, don't hide in your office. We all have times when we have to close our door, such as my door is closed right now. But generally, I like to keep my office door open whenever I'm available, and anytime an employee needs to talk to me, I'm always open to it. It's one thing to say you have an open door policy. It's another thing to actually to do it. Let employees know where the organization is going and what's in it for them. Work with employees to understand their individual career goals and align them with the organization's. And develop a relationship. Again, get to know more people. Get to know them better. What is one personal success you've had, you can ask. You can ask, what are some of their hobbies? What's one thing you're hoping to accomplish outside of work? We had someone who is in our office who loves to bake and brew beer and go on wine tastings. And because of that interest, we're looking at some opportunities to do training for some different industry sectors around like winemaking. We just had a business open in the area that distills spirits, and we're looking to see how we can utilize the science and the knowledge behind that to do programs. And that all came about because of the hobbies and the passions of people that we work with. So by talking to them, we were able to kind of channel that energy in a way that's going to help the organization. And again, your goal as a boss should almost be at times a facilitator. What can I do to make your job easier? What can I do to get out of your way? What obstacles can I lift? What heavy rocks that you're having trouble lifting can I help you lift? Well, the proverbial rocks, at least. And, unwillingness to change or innovate. Always focusing on the past rather than the future. Need do-or-die situation. Support the status quo and entrenched interests. Underfund new ideas. Inhibit employee innovation. The world is littered with companies that didn't innovate, that focused on the past rather than the future, one of which was Kodak, a huge company that was the leader in film, now is second tier in many instances to some of their competitors because they wanted to focus on film and really didn't see the future in digital, and their film division's gone. I remember going to the store and seeing all the different film companies, mainly Fuji, and you had Kodak, but now, one of which has all but disappeared in the film market because of their unwillingness to change. So don't be focused on the past and focus on the future. So what is the impact of leadership? You're going to influence others. So use a variety of approaches in your leadership. You want to clearly communicate your vision and anticipate resistance. And again, a lot of this can come from talking with people and asking, well, what are the things you fear? What do you think is going to come out of this? A change in policy or procedure may affect people different ways. And remember to be patient and be flexible, especially as you're changing. Again, I can't say it enough that change is like a grief period. You need to allow people to go through that and to experience that on their own time. And you can give them the tools as much as you can by being patient and flexible and giving them any kind of reassurance that you can. And you always want to promote teamwork. Be accessible, observe before you ask, and encourage cross-training to minimize a silo mentality. Pitch in and work alongside team members. You have regular gatherings with non-work focus. One of which I always remember was when I was in college, I was helping out with the church youth group, and the diocese, the bishop had this program where we were going to help out with Habitat for Humanity. So for a week we went and built at this Habitat for Humanity house, pouring concrete and doing plumbing. And one of the greatest things was the bishop himself showed up for a couple of those days and was helping to shovel concrete and do not welding, but do soldering and everything. And it was his idea, it was his program, but because he was working alongside us, we felt more motivated, because if not only did he want it done well enough that wanted it done enough that he was willing to do it himself. And that really made us feel great. Okay, ask decisively. You want to make sure you're asking the right question. Decide what you need to know, gather the information, turn information to knowledge, and make a decision. Again, what system do you have to determine what your next step is? What questions do you need to ask? Again, that comes from knowing your organization and knowing the people you work with. Gathering the information. There's ways to gather. There's quantitative information, numbers, budget numbers, projection numbers, but also the people side of it. How is this going to affect people? How will our people in our organization deal with it? What does all this mean? And then when you make a decision, use all this information, but also use your judgment. Life is more than ones and zeros and stories. It's also our experiences. So please use everything you have at your disposal to make a decision. Again, to demonstrate leadership in a crisis. The best leaders often rise from a crisis. Communicate frequently, develop options, spend time with adversaries, let go of the past, and stick with it. Again, as things change and things are unclear in a crisis, communicating effectively will help alleviate some of those fears people have. Have options. Plan A is not going to work. Plan B might work. Plan C, we're going to go with that. And always change that. Spend time with adversaries. Competitors, talk to them. In the end, we're all in it together. So, spend time see what they're doing. See what's working for them, and maybe that might help direct some of your decisions. Let go of the past. What happens in the past is done. They always say you can't unring a bell, or the other one I like is you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, but sometimes it's good to let it go. It reminds me of a story of these two traveling monks who were walking across the countryside, and they came across to a large river, and there was a young lady next to the river, and the young lady asked the monks, "Can you help me cross the river? I can't swim." The first monk says to the second, "Brother, we cannot touch a female. It's against our religion." But ignoring him, the second one puts the young lady on her shoulders and wades across the river, sets her down, and they go their two different ways. After about another hour of talking, the first monk says to the other, "Brother, I'm very upset that you did that when we were not supposed to. It really upsets me." And the second monk says to the other, "Brother, I put her down hours ago. You're still carrying her." So think of that sometimes it's just better to let go of the past and move on. So last, I just want to close with a little bit about the training library. So today we've been talking about leadership, and this title, Leadership 101, is one of the titles from the Reproducible Training Library. We call it RTL. The RTL is delivered to you as a set of editable Microsoft Word and PowerPoint files. Each title is a full soft skills training program developed by subject matter experts and formatted to allow customization They're easy to edit, just like Word or PowerPoint, and make the training your own by combining information, adding your own logo, or specific company-related information. Edit it any way you like or not at all. You don't have to do anything to edit or use these materials. All programs are ready to use just as they are, full professional training programs that are easy to facilitate. If you have self-study needs, the RTL has an e-learning format available for most titles. These are roughly 60-minute programs in PowerPoint format with guided instruction, case studies, quizzes, and practice exercises. These programs are also SCORM compliant, so you can add them to your learning management software. The best thing about RTL titles are that you pay for them once, and they are yours to use and reproduce forever. No additional licensing fees or per-seat fees. No more paying for additional participant materials ever. And with that, I think I'll hand it over to Sarah.
All right, perfect, Tom. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have about 15 minutes for some of those live questions. So attendees, go ahead and submit those my way now. And on that screen, you'll see Tom's contact information. So if you want to get in touch with him, his email is tbux@ltric.edu. And then also, just a little bit more about Leadership 101, we are offering a 50% discount on this. And you can go ahead and try that out for 30 days risk-free. And for more information, or if you want to purchase it, you can go ahead at HRDQ-store.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get to questions. Our first one is coming from Jen. Some people seem to be naturally strong leaders. Do leadership skills just come naturally to some people?
Yes. No. Yes and no. There are some people who tend to be better leaders and than others, but generally leadership can be learned. I mean, a lot of the skills can be learned. If I consider myself a leader, I think many of us here consider ourselves leaders now, but think back to where you were when you first entered the workplace. Did you have those same skills? Were those skills learned? Perhaps some of the skills that make good leaders, such as empathy, ability to listen, good speaking skills, or good communication skills, are inherent. But in many cases, we could hone them and improve them. And even people who might not necessarily have been good leaders can learn to do so. So it's really is an answer of it depends. I would say in a lot of cases it's people are kind of have some of those natural traits, but they can always be learned, and through different programs we can train you or teach you some of these skills.
All right, perfect. Thanks. Let's see. Moving on to Allie. Are there phrases that leaders should avoid?
I think some of the things, especially in communicating with your staff, is to avoid, especially if people you work with have done something not up to speed or not up to your specifications, is to avoid those you phrases like "you did this" or "you did this wrong." Instead, try to make them either about yourself or general. So don't say, you did this wrong, you cost us a sale, or whatever it would be. Say, this program, the way this was done could have been done better. Don't take people out of connection to what you're doing by using those you phrases. So I would say that would be something you should avoid using. I think sometimes a lot of those catchphrases that we hear sometimes, words like paradigm shift and things, I think they aren't necessarily bad. It causes a little bit of eye rolls among subordinates, and I think it's best to avoid them. Again, as I mentioned before, speak clearly. One of the things that is, if you take away from this, is to remember that to be a good leader, you need to have clarity and integrity. But if push comes to shove, clarity is going to win. Think about some leaders through history that had amazing clarity of thought that might not necessarily have been a good thing. You have some of the people during World War II that led us into war, that led the world into war, were tremendous public speakers and had tremendous clarity of vision, but they lacked the integrity, and therefore what they did was not necessarily a good thing. So you could be clear. So have your clarity. So don't use those. So I would say regarding what not to do. Don't use those you accusatory phrases. Instead, try to make it more benign and about solutions, and be clear in your communicating, and avoid those catchphrases if you can. And if you can combine clarity with integrity, you're going to be one heck of a leader.
All right, thank you. And let's see, Lauren wants to know, isn't the most important thing the actual performance of the company, regardless of what the leader is doing?
In the short term, yes, because in the short term, you're going to have, the performance is going to go up. So if you have poor leadership, or maybe perhaps you're leading by fear or intimidation, or cracking the whip, so to speak, in the short term, your company's going to see some benefits, because people are going to work to get the job done. But if that continues, you're going to start losing good, committed people. The ones who stay are going to become disengaged, or actively disengaged, and your company performance is worse. So it's really good to avoid doing those things in the short term. Again, with any leadership thing, with any kind of leadership style, you always want to lead by example and lead through communicating, but every once in a while, everybody's going to have to resort to the do this, do this, do this. That's just a nature of the beast. But you have to try to exemplify these positive, and exemplify this positive leadership as best you can, because that's what's really best at it for the long term. It might take longer for the performance to improve, whereas if you lead like in a dictatorial way, you might see performance go up right away, but in the long term, you're going to have a net negative effect.
All right, great, thanks. Let's see. Yep, I think we just have one more, and that one is coming from Teresa. How do you work with others who have the same shared vision, but rather a different path or method than yourself?
Well, that's a good one. I think vision is really where you want to go. So even if you have the same shared vision, you can work out the specifics on how to do it. Because remember, everybody who comes to the table brings different work styles, different work history, passions. What drives you? What drives you to come up every day might not be the most important thing to somebody else. I was just thinking about it the other day, because very often when I meet somebody and they say, "What do you do? What does the Workforce Center do at L-Tri-C?" I'll say, "Well, we do this and this and that," and I get into the what instead of the future statement. So I thought of something. I said, skilled workers make great business people, or having skilled workers makes businesses great. We at the center make great skilled workers, and you start with that, and then the specifics can be left up to the individual based on their strengths. So depending on your team, what your vision is. You all have the same vision, but depending on who's on your team, you're going to approach it a different way, and that's okay, because the way people are going to be engaged on your team is by allowing them to bring their own ways of doing things, their own ways of thinking, their own passions to the workplace. And being a leader, you just show them where to go and kind of guide them and give them the tools to get there, even if they are doing it in different ways.
All right, great. And we actually just had one more person submit a question, and this is coming from Colleen. Do you have any tips on providing constructive criticism to passive-aggressive employees in a way which will be productive?
That's a good one. That's a great question. So tips. Read the question to me again, so I can put it in my brain here.
Sure, no problem. Do you have any tips on providing constructive criticism to passive-aggressive employees in a way which will be productive?
Okay. Again, I would say if you're going to communicate with them, you have to have those honest conversations and ask them, first point out the problem with their actions, and again, don't make it about them. Don't say, you're being passive aggressive, or you're doing this. Say, point to specific actions. At times, like you may say, use phrases like this. At times when this happens, people are negatively affected, or people don't like that because of this. It makes them feel this way. So try to point out how their actions affect people at work, how it affects them emotionally, physically, mentally, and let them know that, because a lot of times that can help correct the issue. But also talk to them and try to find out what else might be at work. As I mentioned before, many times employees get disengaged for various reasons. They're either unengaged or actually disengaged at work, and being passive aggressive can be a form of that. So try to talk to them, see what they're missing, perhaps allowing them to, again, give them those tools to be able to bring more of their personality, more of their interests, more of their desires to the workplace. Might cure some of that up. And sometimes just having some sort of program around communicating can help do that. Because a lot of times, I could tell you myself, I tend to be strongly introverted, and sometimes introverts are thought of as standoffish or rude, and it's really not that way. It's just having an understanding of what they are as a person, how they appreciate information. And again, it comes down to communication, and just talk to them, see what's going on in their lives, and see what you can do as a leader to alleviate some of those fears. Again, because a lot of those passive aggressive traits or maybe may not be perceived by them. They don't see that they're doing it wrong. So just communicate them, let them know that there's an issue, and be honest, and give them the tools to perhaps change.
All right, great. Those are some wonderful questions. And Tom, thank you so much. And would you just like to add any final thoughts before I go ahead and wrap up then for today?
No, I just, the things I'd like to have you walk away from is just remember that leadership is according to Andy Stanley said this, and he's a great writer on leadership, and he said clarity versus integrity. Clarity will always win, but it's good to have both as a leader. When you're working on your vision as a leader, you want to state it simply, make it memorable and portable, make it about the what, not the how. And your vision should engage the heart. When people read that vision, it should engage them on a primal feelings level. So with those are some things I like you to walk away from, and then I think you'll go out and do great things. And remember, what you do as a team leader really affects how people go about their days, how they go home and they treat strangers on the street, and they interact with their family, how their evenings are. So know that what you're doing is really, really great work, and keep it up and continue to grow yourself, and you'll do great things.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Tom, again. And everybody on the line, we appreciate your time, and we hope you found today's webinar informative. Thank you.